In a surprising move last week, the European Parliament, the European Union's legislative body, has proposed new measures which would legalize end-to-end encryption on all communications and devices produced within the EU as soon as 2018. The move comes in stark contrast to countries all across the world over recent years, such as Great Britain, whom have all gone on to pass strict laws regulating and banning end-to-end encryption outright. Officially introduced by the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs earlier this week, the 91-page document outlines 135 small amendments to various laws currently governing electronic communication and data collection within the European Union. Perhaps most significantly, the new bill proposes to amend Section 49 of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, which requires all tech and communication-based industries within the jurisdiction of the EU to remove electronic protections whenever and wherever possible, essentially empowering these industries to encrypt and protect customer communications in the future. In an explanatory statement attached to their proposed revisions, the committee explains that their intentions are to modernize technological laws as they are currently written. The committee goes on to decry that everyone has the right to respect for his or her private and family life, home and communications, going on to add that everyone has the right to the protection of personal data concerning him or her, and such data must be processed fairly for specified purposes and on the basis of the consent of the person concerned or some other legitimate basis laid down by law. The committee also calls for the laws to be administered and overseen by an independent authority, not necessarily by the European Union or an individual country's government themselves. The committee is also calling for these changes to take effect by May 25, 2018. As a self-proclaimed privacy hawk and someone whom has frivolously attempted to lobby members of the United States government to support strong encryption rights in the past, I have to admit that no one is more surprised than myself to see these measures go forward. With that said, however, I will also be the first to admit that maybe people like myself have it wrong on this particular issue, and I do question if end-to-end encryption would make society less safe. Why do governments traditionally ban end-to-end encryption outright? I think it is safe to say that before 2015 almost no one in society had ever heard of end-to-end encryption before, never mind the whole moral debate surrounding it. This all changed, however, after a terror attack in San Bernardino, California, which was then immediately followed by a very public and controversial court case involving the FBI and Apple. While the FBI proceeded to win the case and the Department of Justice has since gone on to mandate backdoors on all technological devices produced in the United States, the debate surrounding encryption laws has certainly not gone away. While no rational person would like to have their most intimate and personal conversations clandestinely read by some random middle-aged government employee they will never meet, the problem is that, for the most part, the type of people who tend to need strong encryption the most, tend to be criminals, terrorists, or people with something to hide. These are the people who make this whole debate so complicated and in many ways, ruin encryption rights for the rest of us. Federal employees and government personnel typically justify their behavior of indiscriminately spying on hundreds of millions of people, stating that if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. This is of course ironic though, considering that all of us whom are getting spied upon could never expect the same level of transparency from our government, and rarely does the government apply these same standards to themselves. I mean, look no further than how mad Donald Trump continues to get over all the recent leaks coming out of his administration. Jeff Sessions, the acting Attorney General of the United States, adamantly supports encryption backdoors, but says he will prosecute any federal employee found to have been leaking private communications. An unbearable double standard if you really take the time to think about it. No matter which side of the argument you approach this issue from, it is a general fact that, in regards to mass surveillance and bulk data collection, agencies such as the NSA, CIA and even MI5 have been grossly operating outside the bounds of their jurisdictions and authority for decades now. I will not lie. A small part of me would like to embrace end-to-end encryption for all people and all communication around the world as punishment to various governments for this very behavior over the years, to essentially cut all of these agencies off cold turkey and make them get back to real police work. Would this be justice? Perhaps yes. Would this make our world safer? No, probably not, but that is exactly the problem with this whole discussion to begin with. How do we balance people's right to privacy and ending decades of government tyranny? Is it even possible to find a solution which protects innocent people without empowering criminals or terrorists at the same time? Considering that we do not know who these terrorists are, if we grant end-to-end encryption rights for all peoples, wouldn't this also serve to help protect the terrorists? If the government has to illegally or unconstitutionally spy on 2 million innocent people to find just one terrorist, was the government justified to do so? I think you will find that there are people and arguments on both sides of these questions right now. There is also the argument that end-to-end encryption should be supported by everyone in society, because the government itself cannot be trusted with technological backdoors. Look no further than the 2016 hacks of the NSA and CIA, which leaked various backdoors and exploits for nearly every communications device out in the open for any hacker to find or use. These agencies had previously told us that encryption backdoors were safe, because only the government and law enforcement agencies would be allowed to access or use them. However, as history has proven, this is simply not true. End-to-end encryption quite literally means that no backdoors exist whatsoever for any encrypted product or service, meaning that no one, not the government or police or some random Ukrainian hacker living in his basement, can penetrate through the encrypted protection on that device or service. The minute a single backdoor is created for any encrypted device, regardless of who does or does not have possession of it, the encryption on that device is rendered worthless. Essentially, you cannot support backdoors and end-to-end encryption at the same time. They are two conflicting ideas.